Hey folks, and welcome to the channel. And today we're working on repairing the door panel, specifically the driver's side door panel on my 1997 Ford F350. Stay tuned. If you're anything like me, you might drive an old truck from like the 1980s or early 90s, and to some extent though, they're made out of plastic, and unfortunately plastic doesn't really hold up that well, and it's not always the easiest in the world to repair. Specifically, what I'm trying to do here is repair my driver's side door panel, and what I found here that seems to be working pretty darn well is using a plastic welder. So a lot of the plastic inside the automotive interior is made out of ABS plastic. It's something styrene plastic, but what it is you can think about it like hot glue, to where you can melt it and you can form things back together. In fact, the only way all this stuff is formed to begin with is that they take ABS plastic pellets at extremely high temperature and pressure, and they just squish it into a mold, and that's where we get these shapes. So what I'm doing is I am repairing some of this plastic using some new ABS filler material. And so what I've got specifically though is I have a plastic welder. This is basically a soldering iron that has a lot more power, and it doesn't get as hot. Now, I've tried in the past doing this similar repair using a soldering iron, and frankly it doesn't work that great. I think it's largely in part because the soldering iron gets too hot and ends up cooking the plastic and making it very brittle. But because of this plastic welder doesn't get as hot, it tends to leave the plastic a bit more flexible, and so that definitely seems to help. In addition, I also have some 3D printer plastic that I'm using as a filler material. This is ABS plastic. It's the exact same stuff that the base material is made out of. And the thing that's nice about this is that you can use older parts from like a junkyard or something like that. But I like using the new plastic because it's going to be in a lot better condition. It's not going to be as nearly as aged as the older stuff. But in any event, I've got a little piece here that I want to try to fit in, and I'll show you guys the technique. For starters, what I'm doing is I'm using a stainless steel brush. You can use a little wire brush to be used to clean the surfaces. So I'm just kind of scratching it up a bit to help release anything. And I'm going to wipe this down with isopropyl alcohol as well, and that'll help remove any residual. It's just like welding metal. You want to make sure it's extremely clean. Alright, so I've got that all brushed out, and I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol. Now I'm going to just wipe the surfaces, make sure it's nice and clean. Now, I probably should have put this piece in earlier, but oh well. Alright, so I'm going to use my plastic welder to kind of push back some material here so I can make this thing fit. Now what I'm going to do is kind of tack it into place, and so I found is you can just kind of go along the seam and it'll hold itself together. And what I'm doing as well is, to prepare the surface, I am also grooving the material, and this will just help with better adhesion between the layers. Now you do want to make sure you do this in a well ventilated environment. I do have a fan going on here, as you can hear in the background, and that definitely helps to make sure that you're not breathing in any of the nasty fumes. Now at this point, in order to actually fill in the material, I'm trying to lay pretty much an entire bead of the 3D printer material. So I'll just kind of lay it in the groove and let it melt in there. And what you're trying to do here is also melt a good bit of the base material, just like you're welding with metal. Alright, so the next trick is to fill in some of these larger holes, such as this guy here in the middle, or in this big patch here. This was a little bit more challenging. So what I'm going to do is, I have some larger pieces of ABS material. This in particular is an old 3D print that I made, project I'm working on. This is also ABS plastic. And I'm gonna just break this up in a little piece and just use it as kind of like a backing to help to fill in the hole. Alright, I think I finally got this part all patched up. Took a lot of darn plastic welding, took a while, but it's decently strong now. So what I'm doing though is that there's some high spots from the plastic welding because I'm not really perfect at doing it. So I'm using some 60 grit sandpaper right now to do some initial knockdown on it. Just get the high spots off, and then I'll make it a little bit finer, and then I'll go ahead and recoat it, recoat fabric. Alright, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and try to recover this plastic part that we've been repairing with the vinyl trim. And to do that, I have this 3M contact adhesive. I just make sure it lines up properly. Looks like that should do the trick. Alright, so I'm also going to use a little bit of super glue so I can hold these little corner pieces down. And ultimately, the wedging action of this whole piece getting stuffed up against the door should help hold the fabric in place, but super glue will help it at least temporarily stay in place while I install the whole thing. Alright, we're about now ready for final assembly. Got the door panel here, and this is the part. So to begin with, I'm going to use the screws that were already used before to go ahead and install this guy. Just these little sheet metal screws like that. The original panel from the factory was held on with these plastic studs that were kind of melted onto the back of the door panel. But somewhere along the way, previous owner of the truck actually did some repair work, it looks like, on this door panel, and used some sheet metal screws, as you see on the left here in this picture. Now, I figured these screws were just as good as anything else, and so I decided to go ahead and reuse those to hold the door panel together. This is also nice because you can later remove the section later if necessary. And that should be a start. Alright, and while I've got the plastic welder out, I'm also going to address these few holes. These are the ones that I originally had to completely cut out. So now I'm going to try plastic welding them back together. And I think we can go ahead and reinstall this guy. But pretty much does it for now in terms of door panel repair. Hopefully this helps give you guys some ideas about what you can do to help repair the door panel on your old vehicle. Anyway, thanks for watching.